Howdy. Science alert. Scientists detect intriguing differences in the eyes of children with autism and ADHD. When it comes to neurodevelopmental conditions like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder ADHD and autism spectrum disorder ASD, the earlier and more accurate the diagnosis, the better. It means more time for treatment and symptom management, and often a diagnosis provides people with a far better understanding of themselves. However, ADHD and ASD, like many mental disorders, require criteria to be diagnosed and exist on a nuanced spectrum. There is no one test that can identify what's going on. New research suggests a potentially speedy, reliable alternative for detecting signs of these conditions: an eye test. Scientists have been able to use a test called an electroretinogram, ERG, which measures the electrical activity of the retina in response to light to detect different patterns of activity in those with ADHD and ASD. Scientists have been able to use a test called an electroretinogram, which measures this we already read. ASD and ADHD are the most common neurodevelopmental disorders diagnosed in childhood, says research optometrist Paul Constable from Flinders University in Australia. But as they often share similar traits, making diagnosis for both conditions can be lengthy and complicated. Our research aims to improve this. By exploring how signals in the retina react to light stimuli, we hope to develop more accurate and earlier diagnosis for different developmental conditions. A total of 226 youngsters were included into the research: 55 with ASD, 15 with ADHD, and 156 controls with neither ADHD nor ASD. Scans showed that children with ADHD showed higher overall ERG energy, while those with ASD showed less ERG energy. The researchers suggest differences in the way the brains of people with ADHD and ASD are wired. The different connectivity and the different levels of chemical messengers, such as dopamine, for example, are then reflected in the eyes. Previous studies have also highlighted how the eyes can reflect what's happening in the brain. This is the first study of this kind, and so we're still at a preliminary stage. Yeah, I haven't read this before, it's really sketchy to read this, but anyway. However, the results are enough to suggest patterns of eye behavior could be used to identify ADHD and ASD in children and to distinguish them from each other. Retinal signals have specific nerves that generate them. So if we can identify these differences and localize them to specific pathways that use different chemical signals that are also used in the brain, then we can show distinct differences for children with ADHD and ASD and potentially other neurodevelopmental conditions. This word seems to be too long for me. ASD, which affects around 1 in 100 children, leads to differences in the way that kids behave. They can include how they interact with the world, for example, and how they communicate with other people. ADHD is thought to affect between 5 and 8 in 100 children. Like ASD, it involves brain development, but in this case, it is characterized by being overly active, struggling to control impulsive actions, and having difficulty concentrating. No, let's read it to the end. There are effective treatments to manage ASD and ADHD, but a proper diagnosis is key. Further research is now going to be required to establish exactly how retinal signals differ in people with ADHD and ASD compared with those without these conditions. Buck. Ultimately, we are looking at how the eyes can help us to understand the brain, says cognitive psychologist Fernando Marmolejo Ramos from the University of South Australia. It is truly a case of watching this space as it happens. The eyes could reveal all. The research has been published in Frontiers of Neuroscience some 3 days ago or something. Let me show us something other interesting paper I stumbled across today. I guess these are the same people, Frontiers of Neuroscience. I'm not really sure. I'm not a scientist. Superior pattern processing is the essence of the evolved human brain. Mark P. Matson. I really haven't dived into that, but I just think that if you are good in pattern recognition, according to this one sentence, you might be in a way further in evolution than people without this ability. I don't know. Which is no one's fault. No one to blame. Humans have long pondered the nature of their mind brain and, particularly, why its capacities for reasoning, communication, and abstract thought are far superior to other species, including closely related anthropoids. This article considers superior pattern processing (SPP) as the fundamental basis of most, if not all, unique features of the human brain, including intelligence, language, imagination, invention, and the belief in imaginary entities such as ghosts and gods. SPP involves the electrochemical neuronal network-based encoding, integration, and transfer to other individuals of perceived or mentally fabricated patterns. During human evolution, pattern processing capabilities became increasingly sophisticated as the result of expansion of the cerebral cortex, particularly the prefrontal cortex, and regions involved in processing of images. Maybe I should stop thinking while reading, just read. Let's try. Specific patterns, real or imagined, are reinforced by emotional experience, indoctrination, and even psychedelic drugs. Impaired or dysregulated SPP is fundamental to cognitive and psychiatric disorders. A broader understanding of SPP mechanisms and their roles in normal and abnormal function of the human brain may enable the development of interventions that reduce irrational decisions and destructive behavior. So, where was it? Wait a second, I wanted to point out one single thing from this abstract. Here. Electrochemical. I'm not a chemist or electrophysicist. No, I'm just a curious dude. But somehow it seems very strongly to me that whatever chemical reaction, all chemical reaction, all of them are electromagnetic in nature. There's ions changing places, and there's about charges and equilibriums and energy circuits, energy flows, discharges, like people discharge in many ways. One of them is crying. You can cry for many reasons: being happy, being sad, being angry. Like I said, I haven't been diving into that, but these are two interesting articles. Like the other one was just an article about a paper. This is maybe the paper, I'm not sure, I think so. The fundamental function of the brains of all animals is to encode and integrate information acquired from the environment through sensory inputs and then generate adaptive behavioral responses. Sensory information is first rapidly encoded as patterns inherent in the inputs, with visual and auditory patterns being most extensively studied in mammals. The large numbers of encoded images and sound patterns can then be recalled and mentally manipulated in ways that enable comparisons of different patterns and, at least in the human brain, the generation of new patterns that convey objects and processes that could possibly exist or are impossible or implausible. In this article, I define pattern processing as the encoding and integration of perceived or mentally fabricated patterns, which can then be used for decision making and for transfer of the patterns to other individuals. Examples of types of pattern processing that are common among non-human primates and, in many instances, lower mammals and are therefore not uniquely human include cognitive maps of the physical environment, such as the encoding and recall of locations of food sources. Might be important soon for everyone. Potential predators, the killer monkeys, and navigation landmarks, parade instabilities in the sky. Cognitive mapping is critically dependent upon the hippocampus, the ability to distinguish individuals of the same species and their emotional state based on features of their faces. The use of gestures to capture the attention of and to communicate a desired response from other individuals has been suggested that communication via gestures, which is well characterized in apes, was a precursor to language during human evolution. So, that's really hard work to read. Where was it? Electrochemicals. Where are they? Electrochemicals. So if you think we are part of electric circuit of the planet we are on, of the solar system we are in, of the galaxy we are in, and of the place where our galaxy is in, and of the place in which the other place is in. We are at the very end of this whole energy circle. Since we are the most conscious beings, probably, roamed on this planet. Maybe it's not true. Maybe there has been many humans before us. And there are many humans in other places too. Or even better equipped species than we are. Since the majority just thinks we are really well educated and we know we have built cars and all these kind of things that we are, the pinnacle. But we are not. It's just a commercial. But anyway, so since thoughts are electromagnetic impulses interpreted by your brain, your heart gets an electroshock every now and then in order to keep you alive. So what are feelings? What is consciousness? It's just a bundle of energy somewhere, which is focused into a C pinch, which keeps your consciousness in place. I don't know if there's people out there who know about human design. According to human design, we evolved from 7-centered beings to 9-centered beings. And with the timeline and these kind of things, it somehow matches up with big cycles, sun cycles. It's really interesting. So, what I try to say is, we're about to experience a 12,000 year cycle. The beginning. It started already. Do you think I was building for fun this watering draining system into the yard? Which is really, really ugly. But it works. And I just use the stuff there is. If I would have won in the lottery or something, or things would be different, I would have just bought the things I need. But anyway, I won't dive into that now. Maybe once. You have no idea. Probably you have noticed I'm not here to entertain anyone. These videos are not for entertaining. These are this kind of discharge videos for me. There's so much stuff I could share. Every now and then I make some videos, and I somehow thought it's maybe easier for some to follow if I make videos about same things like repeatedly, like earthquakes, and then we have these kind of earthquake activities and things which are related to earthquakes. But it's somehow easier to grasp for people, I guess. So I think there is this 12,000 year cycle going on now. And there is in one point, there will be so much more energy in the air. Literally. You can hear it. When you made it that far, you can hear it. I promise you. You won't forget it. If you have anyone to tell afterwards. So for those who made it through, they made it through some really, really, really intense electromagnetic activity event. They were exposed with their bodies. They were a part of the environment. If you wear rubber shoes, you're not grounded to earth. But if you touch a stone or whatever, you're grounded. So I guess people which were in those happenings and survived, they had to hold on to something to it. So they were probably grounded. And I somehow think that evolution happens between the pulses or at the pulses of the energy flow through us, through the planet. So it's going to be interesting to see how people react to not only bad weather, extreme weather, thunderstorms, rain, tornadoes, and all these kind of things, and heat, dry like here. For those who are unaware if it's perfect weather, yeah, it's summer, yeah, let's go swimming. They don't know. But it's somehow funny to read the news or watch the news nowadays. Even science news. Really interesting nowadays. So, pattern recognition. Superior pattern processing is the essence of the evolved human brain. Patterns are really, really, really important. Nature doesn't use numbers. There are patterns in nature. Learn about patterns. You will see the matrix. It's up to you. Thank you.